Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ken Kessler, and I'm a freelance watch journalist for my sins. The character I'm about to introduce you to has brought a breath of fresh air to British watchmaking because his motives are slightly different. Well, motives might seem to incriminate him, but his reasons are slightly different in that he's not a pure watchmaker in that sense. Giles Ellis represents a kind of lifestyle that a lot of people of my generation fear was disappearing, and which a lot of younger people are starting to appreciate, which is that of the British chap. Now, I'm obviously American, so I shouldn't know what I'm talking about, but it was British chaps that inspired me to emigrate in the first place. Giles is, I don't want his ego to get any bigger, but he's a man of taste and style, and he's applied this to a new look in watches. And this may be the only seminar you'll hear where the topic isn't technical, it's about the romance of watches, and why he's chosen such unusual subjects to commemorate as lighthouses. Giles Ellis.
Thank you, Ken. Good grief, look at you all, it's amazing. It's really nice to know that other people, other than my wife and my mother, appreciate maybe, perhaps, what I have to say. And if you all get bored and leave, they're in the audience, so I won't be alone. Last year at SalonQP, I did a talk that I thought was very, very clever, very sophisticated. I referenced design elements for the Signalman wristwatch by talking about ancient architecture and mathematics and all sorts of very clever stuff. But it seems the thing that I was best remembered for, and this was mainly because I received in the post a number of these, custard creams. You get the giant ones from Costa Coffee, and it's those that I got from the post from some of the viewers in the audience last year. So the question for me this year was, how do you improve, how do you better the custard cream? And if you think of the custard cream as our Signalman, and perhaps it is, it's a perfect product at its price point. And I don't say that from an arrogant point of view. You've got to remember that I am a selfish designer. I make everything in Schofield for me. And because I'm a designer, I love what I make. So how do you make something better than a custard cream? Now, one obvious answer is, of course, 2 custard creams. But that's not even relevant, is it? So perhaps a jammy dodger. And I pick a jammy dodger because this is very interesting. It's a more cult biscuit. And I'm talking about a cult biscuit. These are to grown-ups, adults that consume children's biscuits like I do. And this is a niche product. Fewer people would perhaps choose it over a custard cream, but those who do, they really love it. And so I knew that for our second album, our second watch, a very, very difficult thing to be able to pull off. I wanted to keep customer wow up. I wanted to keep you interested and excited. And the best way I felt to do that was to go niche, was to play on the fact that we as Schofield are already niche. We make niche stuff. We're perhaps now esoteric. We appeal to a few people that are in the know. You have to know about us. And so niche was something that I really wanted to explore. And what I find fascinating about niche is that niche products are polarizing. Most people will have an opinion on a niche product, and if you think of a niche product as being unusual, fewer people like them, but those that do really like them. Now, this boot is a niche product. It is a polarizing design. You're either going to love it or you're going to hate it. Rarely are you going to be ambivalent about niche products. You may admire it on the screen, but would you actually want it in your house? These amazing loudspeakers, you either think perhaps they are graceful, or some of you may feel they are grotesque. But most of you will have an opinion on a niche product. And here's another example, and slightly different, because in order to make a niche product, one way you could do it is by doing something conceptual, making a concept product, like this BMW. It's not made of metal, it's spandex stretched over an aluminium frame, and the aluminium frame changes, it moves, depending on how fast you go. The headlights open and close. It's a concept product that most of you will go, wow, it's amazing, but would you actually want to drive it down to Budgeon's? And so last year, I brought you the Circle of Cool. And this was a ring of cool, that very fine line that you cross, and you get crap on the other side of cool. And this year, I bring you the Nexus of Niche. Okay? Now, let me explain the Nexus of Niche. Conservative products that many people subscribe to. These are perhaps high street products, products that don't require any intellectual engagement in the products whatsoever. You see the product, you like it, and you buy it. You don't care about the backstory. And so the engagement with that product is not very much. And as you head towards unusual or niche, customer engagement goes up. If you have a niche product, you want to understand its background, the people behind it, and everything that goes into the making of it. Fewer people will subscribe to that product, but that product will be much more interesting. And then, of course, you have the line, something that I don't want to cross. Some do, but if you cross the line, you get into just weird stuff that mainly teenagers like. And teenagers like weird stuff because it's weird, and they don't care about the backstory, and that's why engagement comes back down. So where did Schofield want to be on the Nexus of Niche, especially with the black lamp? We want to be here, if you can see it, this red cross here, safely behind the line, not to be confused with weird, but taking some risks. But those risks would pay off with the fact that the people subscribe to that safely behind the line product, really engage. We're safely at the best place to engage with those products. So we did this by building, if you like, a conceptual lab, a division of Schofield that could have a bit of fun, that could concentrate on the more interesting stuff, following up on opportunities. And this is our lab. And on our lab is a machine, if you like, an amplifier. We throw all of the good stuff, that is the Signalman wristwatch, and we just make more of it. We want to develop more of the good stuff, the stuff I like. In a lot of cases, that more is in fact less, because we're known for clarity, and we're known for minimalism, and we're known for clean lines. So we wanted to do more with those things, amplify them and exaggerate them with the design. And the categories in which we have to play with are these three categories: design, function, and materials. The latter two have a huge implication on cost, because of course if you make it out of something really expensive, your product's going to be really expensive. Function, like the BMW we saw earlier, also has a huge impact on cost, because the enormous amount of engineering and prototyping and machining that goes into making a concept product that has concept functions. Design less so to do with cost, because of course you could just wrap a wristwatch in fur. It would be very cheap to make, but it would certainly be weird. The thing is with the Signalman is that we know it works. The design of it has worked. We do a DLC variety, and we have nearly, depending on how well Matt's doing out there on the stand, sold all of the DLCs. There's a couple left. And we're in the last third of the production run of the polished variety. So we know that's not something to be tinkered with, that magic. And so going back to here, what we find in the watch industry is that when companies want to concept a product, they freak out entirely in all three areas, all at once. And this is an example of a freak-out watch. And I'm in no way saying it's bad, it's just an example of what happens in the watch industry in concept products. It's certainly a polarizing design, we know that. Some of you will love it, many of you will really dislike it entirely. It's made from very exotic materials, in this case an aluminium lithium alloy, and it does crazy stuff. The complications are absolutely amazingly complicated. Another example, a Berserk watch, is the MB&F Frog, which you can see on the stand opposite ours through there. And what's interesting about these two watches that I've shown you, and the next one, is that they are on the line, just on that line. 50% of the audience think they're really weird, and that they wouldn't even wear it if it was given to you. You'd sell it on eBay straight away. But the ones that get it and subscribe to these brands will die for these brands. They love these brands. They protect them. And they want to know the entire backstory. Maximilian Bucer, who is this company, people love him. He's rock and roll. This guy is cool. And Urwerk, next to us on the stand, they do concept watches. Their watches are collectible, they're interesting, and they allow you to engage with it at an intellectual level. These are thinking people's products. And you either think that you hate it or you think that you love it, but if you do love it, you go deeper and you engage with it. I thought what would be interesting and different for the Black Lamp would to be able to concentrate on one of these areas and not completely freak out in all three of them at the same time. And then just be another concept model wristwatch that on the most part would be totally inaccessible to nearly all of you. And so by concentrating on one of these areas, made for something really interesting. We were tinkering in our lab, playing away, coming up with different ideas and materials and looks and finishes, and a door opened. And that door was a chance meeting with the projects director of a very large carbon fibre mould tools manufacturer in the UK. And I sat opposite this bloke called Ian and challenged him. And there's nothing better than a challenge to really get things going. And I said, is it possible that we could make the signalman case out of carbon fibre? Now, Ian is an unflappable chap, and he just said, yes, it was. But the problem was that I don't like carbon fibre. I really dislike it, and I don't really know what I was doing in that meeting in the first place. I don't like its uniform pattern. I don't like the fact that it's completely ubiquitous. It's everywhere now. It is not a niche product. It is not exotic anymore. We totally have accepted it as a common material in our lives. And so it did not fit the bill of where I wanted the black lamp to be. And here are some examples of a watch company I admire very much. I like their watches. But the material here, shown in its classic woven form, does very little for me personally. It's not exciting enough for me and my brand. Another example, perhaps this one has a polarizing design thrown into the mix, but again uses the standard carbon fibre pattern. So 6 months or so went by, toing and froing. We were working up details of design, putting them into our exaggerator, our amplifier, if you like, concepting our black lamp watch as if it was going to happen. Because I believed Ian, and I believed that he could make our watch out of carbon fibre and it would look brilliant. And in fact, so interesting was that 6 months that this company developed, I like to think on our behalf, a research and development division of their business. And they employed a composite specialist to help with our product, because carbon fibre is a rubbish material to make watches out of. It's totally unsuitable. If I'd done it out of standard carbon fibre, the design of the watch would have to be compromised in order to fit with the unyielding inflexibility of the material itself. So you can imagine the email that I sent to Ian said, we can make a watch out of carbon fibre, but it mustn't look like carbon fibre. Could it in fact look like this cliff in Cornwall? And this picture was actually attached in the email. It said, could we make carbon fibre look like this cliff, or if we can't, could we make it not look like carbon fibre because I don't like carbon fibre? And if it was going to look like carbon fibre, then forget it. I'll make it out of something else altogether. And then I got a picture of this stuff. This is the carbon fibre, or the beginnings of it, 6 months ago, of the material that they made, laid up by hand, one billet at a time. Absolutely beautiful. It blew me away. I realised that I'd taken something synthetic, carbon fibre, which I disliked. I disliked plastic. I disliked the use of synthetic. I didn't really know how synthetic fitted into Schofield as a brand anyway. I like fire and metal and earth and wood. Carbon fibre had no place in my brand. This beautiful material reminded me of Damascus steel. It reminds me of the sea at night. I don't know if you can see it in this light. The sparkle of the waves at night. It was absolutely beautiful. And there was something very clever that we did. And I like to think this is because of me, but the composites development guy, he would say otherwise, I'm sure. But what we did was we eliminated lightness from carbon fibre. We don't need carbon fibre to be lightweight. We're not selling our watches to tennis players. So if you look at this, the height of our watch using a typical piece of Red Bull Racing Formula One profile carbon fibre, we're looking at a laminate ply of 17 layers of carbon fibre for the height of the watch body. Our material, once we eliminated the need for it to be very lightweight, it can now be very dense. And our case body is made from a carbon fibre with 96 plies, all at 0.2. And the stuff itself is very fancy, very special. It required an enormous amount of gathering data and testing the material so it could be right. And if you came to last year's talk, you know that I am motivated by endeavouring to be impressive. I'm trying to impress you all. And I knew that if I had a concept material, it must not fail. That was not an option. And this company were heavied by me daily to say, is it the right job? Does it not only look the way I want it to look, but does it perform the way I need it to perform? Carbon fibre isn't particularly hard. This has to be much, much harder. We have to use an epoxy and a density that gives us the hardness so it is scratch resistant. This is now true. We need to know that nothing will break and it won't delaminate. It won't catch on your clothes and you won't snap the lugs, which could happen with a carbon fibre watch. It does not happen with us now. And you may be able to see that the carbon fibre follows the curves of the watch. This isn't carbon fibre that's suitable for watch making. This carbon fibre is only suitable for our watch. It is made specifically for the case shape of our watch to strengthen its weak points and to play with the shape of the case. So it needed a special name. And the name we gave it was mortar. And mortar is the name of a bog oak, a lovely organic substance that has taken thousands of years to form and to mineralise and to become very hard and dense. It's the perfect name. It's dark, it's mysterious, like our lab, essentially. It fitted perfectly. But more importantly, mortar, and interestingly, is used by artisans. It's an artisanal material used by people nowadays for making smoking pipes. It's a very beautiful wood for making smoking pipes. And like our composite specialists that laid up our mortar by hand to make single billets of watches, this perfectly represented it. But it also perfectly represents more than just the black lamp. It represents a bit more of what Schofield's about. It represents taking time. And that is crucial to our brand. It's about not output, but in fact consideration. It's about considering what you've got and what we've done at Schofield in our products. And with the threat of an Apple iWatch, the black lamp represents everything the iWatch represents in the modern world. The black lamp is the opposite. It's about pausing. It's about taking time to consider the details, which was why we chose to put what many would say is a standard movement. We deliberately chose this movement as the opposite of a concept. From a functional point of view, we've got a rock-solid foundation, known in the industry as a tractor. It's incredibly robust and strong, and that's what we needed. I don't want to conceptualize every single element of the watch. That would be hugely risky for my company, and I'm not interested in that level of risk. This movement is very, very elegant. It's a manual wind movement. This means that every 45 hours or so, you have to take the watch off your wrist, or you should, and you consider it then. It's a pause in life to consider the reasons of why we buy mechanical wristwatches. We wind it by hand until it's done. We watch the wheels go round. We watch the balance move. We consider all the engravings and everything else. And it's an opportunity to consider all the other details that we put in our exaggerator, in our amplifier. The paring down of complications, no date. The elegance of the dial stripped away of larger indices and now just these little hobnail rivets for the hour markers. And this amazing glowing ring that we have put. So the watch is a play on light, light being something that is crucial to the black lamp project. The way the carbon fibre reflects the light and this luminescent ring and the tritium vial that we put inside the crown that glows for 11 years without recharging. It's about pausing and taking the time. It's like smoking a cigar or a pipe. And this is in league with this ludicrous modern concept of slow living. Shouldn't we all be doing that anyway? Taking the time. Everything that the iWatch represents, we oppose. We want you to consider what we do. Like listening to cricket on the radio and our cricket ball strap. It's these old ideals of taking the time. Like growing a beard or a moustache, or perhaps contrary to that, shaving it off with a cutthroat razor, or even having a shave. Like whittling something with a knife, fundamental tools to our modern existence. They are anchors to our here and now. Going camping with your family and looking for stuff in the dark with a torch that we make, and in fact comes with the black lamp so that you can charge it up and play with light. Tools to our modern era. We don't market in an aspirational way. These are not products because you want to be James Bond or an undercover superhero. These are products about your memories. Each of the black lamp is attributed or serialized with an English lighthouse. And most English folk, in fact, will have a memory of a lighthouse. of camping in the lizard and hearing the foghorns blow at night, of cutting the top of my finger off with a penknife that my uncle gave me, or looking for beetles at night with my father. These products that we make are not about what you're not, they're about who you are. Thank you. I think there's questions, is there? I think we've got time for questions, if there are any.
Talking about your materials, obviously that luminescent glowing stuff is pretty cool. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
The glowing ring was really by another opportunity, and what's really interesting is with Schofield and the fact that as the company grows a little bit and as people take you seriously, which is hopefully for us on the increase, is that these doors open and these opportunities come about. And you have these ideas and you're in a position to actually phone people up and say, I know what you do. You're up to something quite interesting. And the case with the Moonglow was a chance call with James Thompson of Black Badger, who's known strangely within the watch industry for these carbon fibre rings that he makes with this NASA Moonglow material. And I saw one of these on a friend of mine who works downstairs on the Bell & Ross stand, and he had one of James's watch rings on, and I thought, there's a little thing there, I wonder what I could do with that. And spoke to James, and James is a very smart guy and very clever, and we basically thrashed out a way of saying, I'd love to use glow-in-the-dark material. It has a charm about it. It doesn't matter how old you are, whether you're a child or an old man, there's something really intriguing about glow-in-the-dark materials. You just love it. It's just always a bit of wow. And in fact, all of last night and this morning, we've shone the torch on the glow-in-the-dark material, and everybody always goes, ooh, wow, that's amazing. It's charming. But it could be tacky, you know. There were prototypes, in fact, and renderings I made of the glowing ring that came right through the case body, but it just looked tacky, and it was a question of restraint, and restraint is something that I love and I'm really interested in. In fact, that was most of last year's talk was about the elegance in restraint. And it came about that if we actually, you have a void in a watch anyway, you need a space between the crystal and the dial. And often that could be part of the movement holder arrangement, and so you have just the shim of metal that is inside of the case. And we thought we could do something interesting with that void. Let's do something with a bit of fun there. So we prototyped this glow in the ring. And subsequently from that, it formed part of the Black Lamp logo, which is the Schofield logo, but with this ring in the middle that we now play with. It's indicative of that, and it kind of carries through. And we found that the glowing material was so powerful that actually we could eliminate all superluminova on the dial and allow the watch to luminesce from the outside in. We prototyped it, and we tested it, and it works. And that's why the dial has changed considerably to suit the glowing ring. So we've inverted the hands. And because we've lost the second hand, we needed counterpoise. We needed balance to the hands. Otherwise, it looks like a rev meter, a tachometer. And so this is why we got these thorns counterpoising the hands. And the hands taper out because I needed a larger area at the end to catch the most light. And we use these domed reflective rivets, again, to catch this light. So you can actually tell the time when the watch luminesces. It's difficult to show in the bright ambient light of the hall, and I've only had the watch for a short time, but I was going down the pub to show it off to someone. You get dressed in-house in tungsten light bulbs, not particularly good at luminescing glow-in-the-dark material. And then you get in the car, and it was amazing, the car at night, because I had the pinprick of the tritium gas insert in the crown and this wonderful crescent of light that formed around the dial. And if I angled it, you could tell the time perfectly with it. And that's why it really came about, and it worked. And that was the main thing. It wasn't so much a gimmick, even though it's nice to show it off. It's something that actually works and is rather charming. And not only that, it's cool. And cool is something that's really hard to kind of work out and justify. But nearly all of you would say, yeah, that's actually quite cool. I like that. Yeah, I could live with that. Thank you. Anyone else?
Would you consider the same design elements in an automatic movement, or will this remain exclusively manual?
Well, that was the thing. And that was really what I wanted to be able to say was I wanted to be able to exaggerate the reasons of why we buy a watch. And so getting rid of the automatic movement, deliberately so, everything's intended, was a choice I made to be able to exaggerate and articulate that point. It's the fact that, okay, it's a synthetic conceptual watch, and most people instinctively would say, well, it should have a techie movement, it should have a techie this, that, and the other, bells and whistles. And that's exactly why I did the opposite, because I only wanted to concept one element and not all the others. And the manual wind really is reflective of all of this slow living that I'm talking about, this really enjoying your watch. And luckily for Schofield, the people that own the Signalman love running their thumb over the side of the watch. It's a very satisfying object, very tactile, and playing with materials and surfaces and textures is something that we really explored and exaggerated. And the way to allow people to do that was to make them take it off at a set time, whenever they're going to do it, and be part of the routine. Perhaps set their watch to the 6 pips, you know, and really enjoy that moment of handling their watch rather than just slapping it on in the morning, which is just a job to do. I was recently speaking to, and hopefully maybe even getting involved with, the owner of Onoto Pens. And this is a pen company in the UK. They made Churchill's pen, little known pen company, but beautiful pens. I love them. And he was describing to me why he puts a long thread, so it takes ages to unwind the barrel. And he did it because he didn't want them coming undone easily. I said, you've missed a trick here. The most beautiful thing about that is that handwriting with a fountain pen is, again, one of these slow-living things. You take your time to do it. And the unwinding of this barrel that is really extended, I felt, was a part of that routine. Filling up the pen with ink is a whole little procedure, and the extra time and care that you have to take to unwind the barrel the extra distance, I thought was absolutely spot on. And so that's why we chose a manual wind movement. Any more? Done? Good? Good? Great. Thank you. Thank you.